So how well did Congress do in 2023? Today we'll be talking to Bill Track 50 data wrangler Stephen Rogers about how Congress did in 2023. So I think it would really help our viewers if we talked about how Congress is made up in general.
So Congress is made up of two houses. You have the Senate and you have the House of Representatives. And the notable thing about the current Congress is that it's a very, very evenly split between the two parties. So in the House of Representatives, you have 220 Republicans and currently 213 Democrats.
And then there was a little bit of shenanigans that were happening in the House in particular this year, right?
Oh yes, it's been it's been a very interesting year. In fact, an unprecedented year. The notable thing about the Republican caucus, of course, is that they're very split. You have the more moderate Republicans versus sort of more hardline Republicans, and they've been squabbling and unable to agree on legislation. And given their very narrow majority, this has been a real problem for them. Obviously, they've replaced a speaker once,
Oh,
and
yes.
that was fairly unprecedented, actually removing a speaker, Kevin McCarthy, and then
Yeah.
replacing Mike Johnson eventually, after failing to agree on a variety of other speakers on the way.
I forgot about that. Let's get down to some brass tacks. What are some stats that we can sink our teeth into?
Okay, so the first thing to note is that Congress introduces a lot of bills. So in this year, which was the first year of the 118th Congress, it's a two-year Congress, so we're halfway. So in this year, they introduced over 12,000 bills.
Oh, wow.
Crazy number of bills, but that's perfectly normal for Congress. They
Okay.
introduce a lot of bills, but of those 12,000 bills, so far they've only passed 34 of them. So that's 29 bills and five continuing resolutions. We could speculate that maybe Congress is always like that. We know that Congress struggles to pass legislation. So if we look back at last year, which was the final year of the 117th Congress, they actually passed 278 bills, which is obviously a
Oh.
lot more. But then perhaps that's a little bit unfair because it was the final year of the Congress. You would expect them to pass more bills at the end. So if we look back at 2021, which was the first year of the last Congress, they passed 75 bills. So
Okay.
again, not fantastic. With the sort of the problems, the lockdown problems have been going on in Congress for some time. But this year was notably poor, which
Okay.
I think we can attribute to the very, very narrow Republican majority, coupled with all of the issues that they've been having this year.
With so many bills to pick from, are there
Yeah.
any bills that you found particularly interesting or you would like to talk about?
Absolutely. Well, the key function of Congress is to decide how to spend American money. Just to put it in context, in 2023, Congress spent $6.13 trillion. Now, of that money, a third of it is discretionary spending, so roughly $2 trillion. And the discretionary spending is where Congress actually gets to decide what it's spent on. And they do that through a series of appropriation bills. So this
Okay.
is really the most important function of Congress. It's to pass those appropriation bills. And there are 12 of them.
Okay.
And they have to pass them to keep the government open. They're supposed to pass them by October. By October 2023, Congress had passed exactly zero of these appropriation bills, largely because wrangling within the Republican Party, but also between the two main parties over what should be spending priorities. In 2023, the first really, really important bill was the bill to raise the debt ceiling back in March. And Congress did manage to pass that. It was a major victory. The two parties did manage to agree, though it was quite rancorous. Then they focused on trying to pass the 12 appropriation bills and failed miserably all the way through the year, all the way up to the deadline of October. They didn't
Okay.
manage to pass a single appropriation bills. Now, this again
Wow.
is very common. Congress very rarely manages to pass these bills. It all came to a head at the end of September. There was an October the 1st deadline where the government was shut down unless they could pass some kind of continuing resolution to keep the government open. And so the second really important funding bill that was passed was that continuing resolution to actually keep the government open in October. And that, of course, was where the controversy really took a head. And Republicans were incensed, certain hardline Republicans were incensed at the Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, actually agreeing a compromise deal with Democrats, and they then proceeded to oust him. leaving the House without a speaker for a considerable period of time, just the period of time when they were supposed to be using the extra time given themselves to actually negotiate these 12 appropriations bills. The good news is that they have finally managed to pass one of the 12 appropriations bills, only 11 to go now, and they passed the one bill at the back end of December that's usually the easiest to pass because it's the one where there's the greatest consensus between the two parties, and that was the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA. And that's basically the bill that sets out all of the defence spending for the year. And that was $886.3 billion worth of defence spending.
Okay.
Eye-watering amount.
Do all 11 other bills have to pass before the government is not at danger for being shut down again, or how does that work?
Yes, theoretically they should, but there have only been two times in the whole of the history of Congress when that's actually happened. Congress never managed to do it. It's a very bizarre system. So what you actually look for is a variety of continuing resolutions to basically say, let's not decide this year, let's just carry on as we were, maybe add a little bit extra here and there. Or omnibus bills where they put them together and pass them, and a load of various other dodges and things, which mean they can get through without actually doing it. But it's a very unsatisfactory system, really, and it uses an enormous amount of Congress time to do this. It would be much more sensible to have a multi-year plan for spending that was agreed in advance. But obviously, neither political party is willing to give up control of.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about with Congress this year?
Yes, so the 34 bills are quite interesting. The duck stamp bill is an interesting one. It's not actually, sadly, about stamps with ducks on. It's to do with hunting, and it's just a modernisation of the way you get a hunting licence. In the past, you needed to actually get a physical stamp on a piece of paper, and there are a variety of others. So a couple of interesting COVID bills were passed.
Okay.
One was finally ending the COVID emergency, sort of officially, so just a bit of a procedure, really. Obviously, the COVID emergency was over for some time in reality. But the other one was actually declassifying documents to do with research into the origins of the virus, obviously to look at, did it really come from a lab in Wuhan or did it originate in some other way as well? There were a lot of veterans bills, again, the sort of thing that can pass reasonably easy because there's very little disagreement that the government should be doing everything it can to support veterans.
With this year being the second year of the Congress, we would historically anticipate more bills to be passed, but it's also a presidential election year and, things are already pretty crazy. So do we think that that's going to possibly even hinder Congress more?
Yes, I think we can pretty much guarantee that, again, Congress is going to struggle to pass any bills. It'll pass more than last year, but then it will become increasingly more politicized and increasingly more partisan as we move into the election season, which is looking to obviously be a very fractious election as well. Certainly interesting for those of us who like to watch Congress, but very, very frustrating for anybody who likes to see Congress getting things done.
Heard that. Thank you so much for your time today, Stephen. And for those of you who are curious, you can read this blog on BillTrack50.com. We'll be back to cover some more blogs later on in the year. So we look forward to speaking to you soon and have a great day.